Give me some initial thoughts on FaZe Paladin, because bizarrely, even though a lot of people still enjoy watching them, they have a lot of fan favorites. They do have like a terrible win rate. If you look online, like I almost say like they're the inheritors of that Cloud9 curse, where you have all these close series, but you never actually win them. It seems like.
Yeah. Throughout that Complexity series, especially, like I felt as though they had the upper hand in some of these rounds. Like it looks like they had some good CT setups. On Ancient especially, I thought they were doing fine. Like I thought they were the better team throughout a lot of the games that they had. But the problem is that as soon as something goes wrong in their setups, or something like a piece just like falls off, like so in the case of the Complexity series again, Olaf kind of fell off in Ancient. I think he had like 9 kills or something in regulation. Like, and once that happened, they just kept exploiting it. Like the B site was useless. Like they could just, the T site could just keep executing on there. They had no choice but to play retakes. The retakes are so hard on that map as well in some cases, and like it just falls apart. So in my opinion, I think that first of all, I think a roster move is imminent. I know it's kind of odd to say, even though they did well at Cologne, but I'd love to see somebody who's actually like tenured in the role. Somebody like Zibnix. I think Zibnix would be a fantastic fit for FaZe. But as of right now, it still feels like that they're that one piece away from really being that contender. Like I think the semifinal run at Cologne was kind of a one-off in a sense that, you know, people aren't that LAN tenured, so teams like Gambit, obviously, they got lucky in that sense that they got Gambit out of all the teams. If they got Na'Vi, you saw, obviously, they got thrashed. So I think that if they get that piece, things could be a little bit more different for FaZe as a whole.
Where are you at with this, Alan?
FaZe, at least this lineup, just doesn't make any sense to me, and I actually think this team is better than it was with coldzera, as surprising as it sounds. I remember watching a lot of that coldzera team, and as Paladin kind of mentioned, their team plays all over the place, and for a team with this caliber of players that obviously know the team game very well, and someone like Karrigan who's led different lineups, and you know, he's always renowned for bringing teams together quickly. It was so bizarre to watch them, especially on CT side. It just didn't look right. It didn't look like a top level professional team like they were aiming to be. So to see now a drop-off with Olaf playing is not surprising, and I'm not entirely sure where they go from here with this lineup. Or Olaf surely doesn't stay playing for that long. It's already bizarre that he's here in the first place. So I think they're in a really strange spot where I don't know where you'd move from here. Obviously, you might look to get a great player in for Olaf instead, but is that really going to change the complexion of the team? It's going to look that different to the coldzera lineup? Do we need to rethink the roles? Is this just not the right place for Karrigan? I don't know. New coach, whatever. Because obviously for FaZe, for a long time actually, at least for me personally, it feels like they should be a top 5 team comfortably with like their history and where this team wants to be, and maybe even their financial investment. And it just hasn't been the case for a long time, and at least since whatever it would have been 2018 at this point or something. So FaZe for me is very bizarre, and I would definitely pick them to beat Complexity in that matchup, but to see them being consistent and have problems doesn't surprise me overall, and it'll be very interesting to see where they are probably after the major at this point and what they choose to do.
I just find it hilarious that I think most people agree with that, not least because they know the rumour of the Robs one and like reuniting Robs with Karrigan, and Robs is basically at this point, it looks like almost a plug and play superstar. Like it would basically be a massive upgrade for almost any big team that signs him. That coupled with the fact that like obviously Olofmeister isn't even supposed to be here, but he keeps playing. Like when we say one piece away, we really just mean get rid of Olofmeister. Like, because the problem this team also has, they just don't have quite enough firepower. Like realistically, it is just Twists has to go fucking mental. Brokey has to have like a pretty good get. Beyond that, you don't have that much in this team. Like Karrigan himself is not really much of a fragger. He's not even trying to win in most of his teams. Rain is all right. He's all right. I'll give him that. I still think he's sort of dining out on past glory. And then for the Olofmeister one, this is where fans have really got to make a decision. You know, in the same way as a lot of us mocked the same fans who were like, why doesn't someone give Zeppa and Floppy a job? So then Cloud9 said him and they're like, this shit. This team is shit. So which is it? Which is it? Right. So for all of Maestro, it goes like this. It's like Get Right when he was at the end in NIP. It's like, do you love this guy and think he's a legend? Yes. Well, good news. All the fucking videos are still on YouTube. Just go watch those if you want to. Doesn't mean he has to take someone's job and waste everyone's time at the top pro level. Because sadly, the thing with Counter-Strike, and I'll admit, this is a mystery to me, and I've followed the game for 20 years. No one really knows why people stop being good at the game. Sometimes it isn't, by the way, like a motivation, like a practice. Like people at Get Right, they put in all the hours, mate. I mean, people might know this story. We've told them by the numbers in the past. Like when God B was the in-game leader of NRG, which is like half American, half like it was him and Tabs, if you remember. In that lineup, right? Richard literally like has sat there in Vegas and watched God B CSDM for 5 hours, then go through demos for 5 hours. Then he'd go in the server and he was still a fucking bot. Like, listen, that can't be helped. If you don't know, 1.6, he was actually really skilled. He was like a frag in IGL. So like, this is just a mystery. No one really knows why players fall off. But the sad thing is this: when they do fall off, I always put it like this. You know what? Maybe there's a world where, like coldzera now, maybe they can come back into form and be good, but I'm not going to gamble on that. You can gamble on that. You can sign that guy for 3 years. I'll just take someone who's good now. And that's the problem I do think in FaZe Clan. It's like they've got Brokey, and he's sort of developed pretty well. He's sort of gone, funny enough, he's gone along some kind of line to Mantu. It looks like, they gradually improve over the years, but they're not really like god tier AWPers. The problem I do think in FaZe is, unless you're going to get Rops, who is sort of like the guaranteed player, you probably should just gamble on a young player at this point in time. You're gonna have one player you try and see if he has some potential, and especially, isn't that the whole thing we've all been talking about Carrigan the whole time? You're supposed to like develop talent. So give him one guy. Give him the guy who can be his next Frozen or Rops for that matter. What do you think on this, Alan? What do you think? Obviously now you're in a coaching position yourself.
Well, to be honest, I'm trying to picture, so maybe even Mezzi could have been a player, I mean, in contention for a spot, and how that would work.
Souls, right?
Yeah, I mean, speaking for Mezzi in particular, he's someone that could play any role. I'm pretty sure, apart from Morping, he'd play any role fine. It wouldn't be an issue. So I'm trying to think about the dynamics of someone like that in a team. It definitely could work. And if you got in the right young player, and this is what kind of the biggest thing about Mezzi is his personality is very good, and he's got the right mindset to improve. You get the right player from probably an endpoint level team, top 25 to 30, where, they played a decent amount, but you're not going to break the bank for their contracts and all that stuff. So maybe it could work. And certainly if we're going to buy into all this about Carrigan and we still believe he can, bring teams to the top level and reinvent players and, create an incredible system, then sure, maybe it will work. I'm still not entirely sold. You could look at a player that's going to bring more structure to the team instead of firepower, because even though you might feel it's a big firepower issue, I still think it's a team play problem on this team. I think they do have good enough players to have better results and more consistent results. So I think you could look at it either way, but I do agree with just recycling older players that have dropped off a little bit probably isn't the way to go. You probably want to make a hard decision. Do we go more in terms of someone who's experienced, can bring a lot of kind of value in terms of a team player? Or do we go a young up-and-comer who we can get in reasonably cheap and take a little bit of a risk, but the upside is bigger than what we're going to have by taking a known quantity who's not being taken by the other top teams? So that's kind of the main thing, is just to have conviction, I guess, and go in a direction that actually has, high potential for a positive outcome.
Aladdin, if you had to just fantasy style, obviously you can't take Zero or Simple or something like that, but you have to just pick someone in the scene who potentially could be in FaZe. As we say, Alan says that you could either go with like a young fragger, you could go with someone to do with supportive roles, assuming you believe in some of the other players. What angle would you go with? is there any names you'd put forwards?
I mean, obviously, I mentioned before, I think Zibnix would work. I don't know, like how the roles necessarily would shape out, but I think that somebody who's been around the block as far as supports go, like he's played with Carrigan before, way back when. I think it could work. I don't know if there's like chemistry issues, but I think that if they had somebody that knew how to anchor bomb sites consistently on a regular basis, that could help with the structure of the team. He knows how to play in a system, like obviously with Astralis. I think that could work very well. And if you wanted to go more towards a younger player, I mean, it's tough in that regard. I mean, you could honestly take a chance on somebody in FPL, like there's a guy Waro2K on Mad Lions. He's an opper, but he's a great player as well. You could try to bring up a double op setup for FaZe. Basically anything that can allow for structure to be the forefront of the team. I think after that structure is made, that's when you can more think about firepower upgrades and really understand whether or not it's the system that's the problem or if it's the firepower that's the problem. So I think that like what you could do is you could bring in somebody like a Waro2K or somebody who's just like really banging in FPL, and if that doesn't work in the structure that you want to build, then you can really pivot to more of an experienced player and see if that's something that could work in that regard.
Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.